What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've discussed many rare pieces from history that have gone up for sale for thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, like that Nintendo PlayStation. Well, now another piece from history has shown up at auction, and it's certainly causing, we'll say some waves online, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we already talked about Sony, as it appears they're finally saying goodbye to last generation in their announcement for PlayStation Plus with their Essential tier. And how far off is Mass Effect, the new one that BioWare is apparently putting together? Well, we got some news on that one, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be anytime soon. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're going to start today with Ninja Gaiden 4, which, while it was nice to see it, obviously, at the Xbox Developer Direct, it was kind of supposed to be a surprise, but you know, I was sort of out there a bit early ahead of time, but still, it was really cool to see that, and it was awesome to have Ninja Gaiden 2 Black just drop immediately into Game Pass. Been playing that, a lot of fun, a lot of nostalgia. It's weird to think that game is just about 17 years old now, the original one from the Xbox 360 days, but as people realize Ninja Gaiden 4 has actually been in development for a little while, since it's out at the end of this year, they started doing the math and realizing, wow, maybe Phil Spencer brought this whole thing together years and years ago when he was talking about making the rounds in Japan. Well, we can see this as an interview is transcribed, we can see from Video Games Chronicle, as they're citing GameWatch, who was interviewing Team Ninja. And this excerpt was interesting, saying after that, Phil Spencer from Microsoft suggested that the three companies, Platinum Games, Koei Tecmo, and Microsoft, work together on a new number title in the Ninja Gaiden series, and that's how the project got started. So yeah, again, I know Phil gets beaten down a lot online. In this case, though, gotta give him some credit. He did go to Japan and seemingly form these connections and these relationships and basically greenlight the whole idea in the first place, since Microsoft being the publisher, it's basically the fund here for this, right? They're funding this idea of a new Ninja Gaiden game. It's been a while, and it didn't exactly leave on a high note with Ninja Gaiden 3, so I'm very excited to see it, and hey, hats off to Microsoft for getting all of this done and making it happen. Also, we do have a Capcom Spotlight event to look forward to next week, this over on their website. It is happening February 4th at 2 p.m. Pacific or 5 p.m. Eastern time, and it will also be followed up immediately by a Monster Hunter Wilds showcase, where it looks like they'll be talking more about the next open beta that will be happening in February, and I'm sure just showing off more parts of what's going to be a massive release for them at the end of February. However, they do go over a couple of different games that will be here. It's planned to be a 35-minute presentation, and we can see Monster Hunter Wilds, of course, Onimusha Way of the Sword, so I'm curious, are we going to see gameplay around this, in-game visuals, just more about the game. Capcom Fighting Collection 2, which we do need a release date for that one, so they should set that into motion since the fighting game collection, the first one, isn't out, although that will be here as well. And I was trying to figure out what that could be. Maybe, I think some were saying, oh, could it be like crossplay, other features in an update, or could it be the Xbox version that is still missing, but seems like behind the scenes they figured it out. So I guess we'll find out next week. Again, tune in on February 4th. Oh, and for Dino Crisis fans, I have some good news, especially if you're on PC, since it looks like Dino Crisis 1 and 2 got enhanced editions that are now available on GOG or Good Old Games. You can see the store listing here. This is for the bundle at $16.99. Technically, you could buy each one separately at $9.99, but I mean, it's $17, I think is worth getting both in the franchise here. And if you take a look at some of the improvements, it's actually quite significant. So it does have full compatibility, of course, with Windows 10, Windows 11. They have new rendering options for like windowed mode, vertical synchronization control. They have improved DirectX game renderer. They have support up to 4K, color depth to 32-bit, and of course, added cloud save support and support for all modern controllers, and a reliable saving system, as they say here, so the files don't get corrupted. But Still, really cool to see these releases since it doesn't appear at this time that Capcom is doing much with it. At least they're making it more and more accessible, even at I'd say a pretty good price there. I mean, $10 each or $17 total for the two, and you can play them right there on your modern PC build. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this crazy Nintendo listing, and that is for a one-of-a-kind prototype for the GameCube. And we've actually discussed this item previously as it was discovered and checked out thoroughly inside and out. And well, we can see this is posted up over on Twitter X. And this is from Console Variations. And they just say we did a thing, but it's for a good reason, as they took a screenshot of their eBay auction for Nintendo GameCube prototype Space World 2000 console. This is the announcement model, so it's one that they were showcasing. It wasn't necessarily a functional model, which again, we went over before. It was more just to showcase the system, and technically it looked like it could power on, and the idea was they just wired up the LEDs so it looked like it was running when, if you look at through, for example, some of the images that they have next to it on eBay, which also the power button is rounded a bit, so it's not flat. You also have wires sticking out of the bottom. But when you look inside, yeah, there's actually no chips. The board's completely unpopulated. There's just a cable running around for any LEDs that may want to light up to look like it's functional. They have basically a dummy disk drive there. And again, this was mostly a display system, all right? And the idea then, of course, announce it, show it off so you kind of get an idea of what it looked like. Didn't have that window, though, in the final production model, as, of course, we know now with the GameCube. But then they go over a couple of things here. So they talk about why they are doing this, which, of course, is the immediate question. Okay, why are you selling this? Well, they say they're looking far in the future, and they see themselves turning their hobby into a foundation business, a gaming place where the entire family can enjoy. People can meet other people, talk with people who feel uncomfortable with other people, and make the visitors feel young again. So it kind of sounds like this is sort of a way for them to do a startup outside of just obviously collecting and stuff. I guess almost an arcade family fun center sort of is what they're describing, but they have this GameCube prototype, Space World 2000 console, listed at $100,000. And they mention it has wear and stuff, and you can see it in the images, so it's not like it's pristine condition, nothing like that. This is one of the situations where I don't even know how I would appraise something like this, and maybe they figured out a way to do it. Maybe they had someone come in and take a look and give them a dollar amount to be around for this. But usually what you would do, as happened with the Nintendo PlayStation, you put it up for auction with private investors mostly going back and forth in bids, drive up the price, and that way you get what the market technically is worth or is willing to pay for it. So the Nintendo PlayStation, I believe, went for like $360,000, somewhere in there. I don't know what this is worth. I don't know if eBay is the best place to sell it, but I mean, technically it's an auction site. You can throw stuff up there and go, but the shipping and stuff involved, hoping that the person who gets it is happy with the item before they have a chance to necessarily, I guess, examine it in person. For that kind of money, it seems like a bit of a gamble on their end, and then also on the seller's end, shipping it, hoping it gets there in the first place. But this is clearly something for a person's private collection. It's not a functional unit. It's basically just going to go up on the shelf for $100,000. So I guess we'll see if anyone actually bites on this and buys it. Right now it says it's in one person's cart, but that could also be the person selling it just trying to put that up there just to give like a sense of FOMO for someone who's thinking about it but not quite sure. So hey, let me know what you think about a $100,000 GameCube that is actually missing the chips on the board and doesn't technically work. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation finally saying goodbye, or starting to say goodbye to last generation with the PlayStation 4, which we are still dealing with now in 2025, and based on some announcements even for 2026, we're still going to see it around. But it looks like Sony is starting to work away from it with their PlayStation Plus offerings. First, though, we can see the Essential tier for February. These will be going live on the 4th. And we have Payday 3 right there in the middle. That's on PlayStation 5. High on Life, PS5 and PS4. And then Pac-Man World Repack, PS5 and PS4. Now, I haven't checked out Payday 3 in months and months, quite a while. So I have no idea if they have been able to update this thing to be good, decent, It was a busted mess when we tried playing it. It first came out, and I just haven't really gone back since then. So, you know what? Let me know in the comments if Payday 3 has seen substantial updates. Because if it has, I wouldn't mind going back to check it out again. It's that first impression thing in a marketplace. It just has games coming out constantly, multiplayer or single player, right? So it's easy to kind of get lost in the shuffle after that bad initial impression. High on Life, though, I did enjoy. I recommend it, especially on a service like this. Download it, check it out. Pac-Man World Repack is a fun little Pac-Man game. I wouldn't go in expecting super deep gameplay or anything, but it's a fun callback to the old Pac-Man days. Nice little platformer there. But the big thing here, though, is later on in this post, they say as we shift to PS5, PS4 games will no longer be a key benefit and will only be occasionally offered for PlayStation Plus monthly games and game catalog starting January 2026. We may still provide titles that can be playable on both PS4 and PS5 consoles after this date. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's taken Sony a while. It really has. They've held on to this PS4 for quite some time, and it does sound like even after this initial time frame, you could still see PS4 pop up next to the PS5 with these different offerings just because, hey, it's backwards compatible, so why not? We'll just go ahead and drop that version in there as well. Or maybe what you're really getting is the PS4 version that also does work on the PS5, so sure, we'll do that. It's just going to be really odd if we do get into 2027 and that PS4 logo is still popping up next to the PS5, and we're starting to hear rumblings about the PlayStation 6 starting to get shown off, and it's like, wow, we really have 3 generations going all at once right now. I don't think we'll get to that point, but it wouldn't shock me if we still see third-party developers launching PS4 titles as far out as 2027, and then maybe you do have generations crossing over all over the place. But for now, at least it looks like PlayStation Plus is working to move on towards the end of this year into 2026. And I don't know, maybe I'll download Payday 3 and give it another look. Let me know in the comments. Next up, let's talk about EA and Mass Effect, which has certainly come under the microscope after what's happened with Dragon Age the Veilguard, which did not go, I'm sure, how EA was hoping. And well, after playing all the way through it, it was such a strange release overall. I mean, there were some fun moments for it, but the writing, I can look at it and go, yeah, that was pretty bad at times. But still, the game, as they said, engaged 1.5 million players. And from there, it seems like they're moving on, as many people within BioWare are even just kind of moving to other parts of EA. At least this is stuff that was mentioned in a blog post and an update as to what's next for them, which should be Mass Effect. Now, we can see this post up over on their website. They say, now that Dragon Age the Veilguard has been released, a core team at BioWare is developing the next Mass Effect game under the leadership of veterans from the original trilogy. In keeping with our fierce commitment to innovating during the development and delivery of Mass Effect, we have challenged ourselves to think deeply about delivering the best experience to our fans. We are taking this opportunity between full development cycles to reimagine how we work at BioWare. I also point out a post down below in the sources from Shinobi, who did go over all the different people who seem to be getting on board for this Mass Effect. And yes, many of them are from like Mass Effect 1 and 2, some from 3, but seems like the big focus here was let's get basically the band back together for this next Mass Effect game after what happened with Andromeda. So, I mean, this is the correct move. If you are going to do Mass Effect, get people together who know how to, who have proven, I should say, that they know how to make Mass Effect in the past. We'll see how this works out again as we go further into, I'm going to say this generation, but most likely, I think PS6 and next generation Xbox for Mass Effect, which I'll give you my estimate year as to when I think this game's coming out. They say, given this state of development, we don't require support from the full studio. We have incredible talent here at BioWare, and so we have worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that had open roles that were a strong fit. Today's news will see BioWare become a more agile, focused studio that produces unforgettable RPGs. We appreciate your support as we build a new future for BioWare. So when they say agile, they really mean they've gotten smaller, so it's easier to manage and make decisions quickly. So yes, in effect, BioWare has kind of downsized here, and in fact, it seems that some of the talent there have been dispersed to other projects within EA, which, yeah, you can have a lot of crossover there based on the different games, and just in general, basic, more generalized tasks between these different games that are being worked on. And now, it does seem that Mass Effect is in, like, pre-production phase, which sounds crazy because the first trailer for it was years and years ago, and now finally it's like, okay, let's get together and start planning this game out, which makes me think this game, this is going to sound bad, I'm thinking 2029, 2030 for this game. Yeah, it's kind of like that. They have to sort of figure out, as they say, reimagine how they develop games at BioWare. And then they can start working on Mass Effect. So it's that is tough for Mass Effect fans out there. And also all the concern after how poorly received, we'll say, Dragon Age the Veilguard is. The good news, though, bringing back the veterans who have worked on Mass Effect before and not really having a lot of the same people who worked on Veilguard technically work on this. I mean, that should hopefully push them in the right direction. So I guess we'll see over the next few years when they're ready to talk about Mass Effect once again. The other part, though, is just because people are being dispersed to other studios doesn't necessarily mean you won't hear about layoffs in the future, even in the near future for BioWare. Typically, when this happens and people start being evaluated for their positions, they may end up going to a place and realize that there's a redundancy there, then someone gets let go. So I'm just saying, don't be shocked if you hear about some layoffs that come of this, but hopefully they're able to find positions for all these different people who are technically being reassigned from BioWare so they continue to have, a job in gaming. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft's recent financial report. Now, it's tough to go over these because Microsoft doesn't exactly share a lot of numbers, especially when it comes to hardware sales. They haven't done that in quite some time. But also just in general for revenue with Xbox, there's a lot of estimation and extrapolation and trying to figure out how much money they're even making. But we have a few figures we can go over here. This was from Pure Xbox, where they say in terms of Xbox, Microsoft mentions a business highlight is the 2% increase in content and services revenue, said to have been driven by growth in Xbox Game Pass. Previously, the area grew by a whopping 61% back in fiscal year 25 Q1. Keep in mind, we are now to the point where Activision is being compared to Activision, like in terms of Microsoft with Activision, right? So it's I think the first quarter this is really happening. So keep that in mind. You see a 2% increase, but it's up from a massive increase technically last fiscal year. Now I say, as expected, hardware revenue unfortunately suffered another decline by 29%, while gaming revenue declined by 7%, which makes sense, seeing that the hardware is down so much. I mean, and we talk about this a lot with Microsoft. Every time they come to the table with investors, it always seems that the hardware is down double digits, 20, 30%. Like, no questions asked, that's probably going to be the case. And in fact, they expect it to continue going forward. Hardware just dropping and dropping. I'm really curious how many Xboxes they're actually selling yearly now. I mean, at this point, with how far it's declined, maybe 20... A holiday 2026 actually doesn't sound that far-fetched with this kind of decline right now that they keep talking about. Now, there was another aspect to this from Satya Nadella, which we can see this was transcribed by Tweaktown, and this was in their call with investors where he says, "We are focused on improving the profitability of the business in order to position it for long-term growth, driven by higher margin content and platform services. And we're delivering on this plan. Black Ops 6 was the top selling game on Xbox and PlayStation this quarter and saw more players in its launch quarter than any other paid release in the franchise's history. And we saw rave reviews of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which has already been played by more than 4 million people, which it should be higher than that. It's a better game than 4 million people, considering it is in a subscription service that has more than 30 million people in Game Pass, and of course it also just being available on PC. And when it goes to PlayStation 5, maybe we'll get another uptick in sales, I would assume. It goes on to say we also continue to see strong momentum for Xbox Cloud Gaming with a record 140 million hours streamed this quarter. That's actually quite a bit. All up, Game Pass set a new quarterly record for revenue and grew its peak PC subscriber base by over 30% as we focus on driving fully paid subscribers across endpoints." So yes, they are looking to be more profitable as opposed to creating a bunch of systems that they break even or lose money on, which is what they're seeing right now with the Xbox. And the fact that with inflation and parts cost and who knows with tariffs, it might even get even more costly on that end. So in their mind, software is key for high profitability. And yes, that means across all platforms. They're going to continue this, guys. I think it's going to accelerate to the point where you just see all these Xbox games that get announced for first party will also be on PlayStation and Switch 2 pretty much consistently, if not across the board. And they're going to continue with their Game Pass subscription and just subscription services as well. So that seems to be their strategy. And in fact, in their mind, if they could sell less and less hardware, they would be cutting out more and more of the expenses that they have to put on the books. So maybe they are to the point where they're like, you know what? We'll create some Xbox, people want to buy them. But if Sony has 100 million PlayStations and Nintendo has 100 million Nintendo Switch 2 systems, hey, we'll just sell our games on there and make a ton of profit that way too. So we'll see how this works out for them in the future, because I do wonder again, how far do you decline with hardware before you just stop making it all together? And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is Game of the Year Madness, ladies and gentlemen. It is the finals right now. You can see Astrobot versus Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Astrobot has the lead, 58% to 42%. This will stay up throughout today, going into tomorrow, and we'll close out the week seeing how all of this worked out. But it looks like Astrobot, looks like it might be winning Game of the Year here too, unless there's a massive turnaround here for Rebirth. But so I'm putting this out there if anyone wanted to vote, maybe missed it. It is up, but kind of lining up about what I figured it would, especially with the Game Awards. Maybe that actually was correct the whole time, with the community basically siding with that, and now also the judges and stuff at the Game Awards. Yeah, maybe Astrobot really was the best game of 2024. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mr. Heller, says, I can't believe some idiot was willing to pay that shipping of $3.96 for the Switch 2 event ticket. Yeah, I don't really know what you're shipping there, because it's all electronic, so like I don't think you print the ticket out. I think, again, I feel like this is linked to your Nintendo account, and you probably have to have that present in some way, and it might just be through your phone. I didn't get in, so I'm not sure if you actually have physical tickets to print out. Let me know if you got in, if you're being told to print out or have like an email, or like you go to the movies, they might send you a text message that has a link to your tickets. Let me know if it's that situation, because maybe they really will physically print out, cut the tickets out, and then put them in an envelope and ship them, and they just want to make a little money on the stamps that they have to buy. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you want to take a trip back, as we just talked about the GameCube Space World 2000, and see what all the forums thought about it back then. I'll leave a link to a video checking that out right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.